Hey everyone, Eric here. Coming up, we have a really great video for you. My Case, makers of leading legal practice management software, asked me to speak all things security and cybersecurity and how to protect law firms' data. Stay tuned. Hey everyone, I'm Eric, CEO and Senior Consultant of Evernet, a national IT services provider based in New England. We advise and support law firms all over the country for the last 2 decades. Our great partner, MyCase, reached out to me and asked if I would join them for an interview-style webinar to discuss themes and issues pertaining to law firm data, cybersecurity. We always show up for our partners and our clients, and I couldn't be more happy to participate. The threats your law firms face are not going away, and the best chance at survival is education. I hope you learned something from this video and thus contribute to operating a safer law practice. Please consider subscribing to the channel now if you haven't already so you continue to receive our important content. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below and I'll answer every single one of them. And finally, stick around to the end for a bonus giveaway. Let's go.
All right, awesome. It looks like most people have started to join, so we'll go ahead and kick things off. Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, How to Protect Your Law Firm's Data. Just to start with a quick introduction of who we are, if you're not familiar with MyCase, we are law practice management software that takes care of your daily practice requirements for calendaring, contact management, document management, time and billing, client communications, custom workflows, and more in one solution at an affordable price. And MyCase is priced for small firms at just $39 per month per user when billed annually.
Wow, you guys are that cheap?
Yeah.
That inexpensive?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
And in today's webinar, we will be discussing cybersecurity best practices, how to protect your firm from data breaches, and more. So my name is Ali Skilperort, and I am the content marketing specialist at MyCase. And we are joined here today by our guest speaker, Eric Buhrendorf. Thanks so much for being here today, Eric.
Hey, Ali, thanks for having me.
And before we get started, I just want to cover a few housekeeping items. So we love taking questions from our attendees and want all of our webinars to be very interactive. So please feel free to send in your questions throughout the webinar and just make sure to send them to everyone in the chat so that everyone can see the questions throughout the webinar and our speaker will address them. And also, we will share the recording of this webinar with you so that you can enjoy the conversation later on and share with friends if you'd like. And now, without further ado, let's dive into the discussion. All right, so Eric, to start us off, can you tell us about your company, Evernet, and your role there?
Sure. Evernet is an IT services company. We support law firms all over the country. We are a Hartford-based company, so the client base is concentrated in the New England area, but we support law firms all over the country. I got my background out of college 20 or so years ago, working for an IT company that was a subsidiary of a company called Caddick. The real estate attorneys might know of that company. It's Connecticut Attorneys Title Insurance Company. And I worked for that IT company for a few years before I kind of wanted to set out my own, controlling the narrative and the products and services and the direction that we were advising our clients. So I've been doing that ever since for about the past 17 years.
Very cool. And I know that you wanted to mention the offer for your company that you were.
Yeah. So for the attendees watching, I'm offering basically an hour free consultation. It's $175 value. If anybody wants to speak with me about their law firm, their security, open conversation, any questions, I'll give an hour of dedicated time to anything you want to talk about. Just go to evernetco.com/LP/MyCase. I think you just put it up on screen.
Yes, awesome. Yeah, and everyone can find that link I just dropped in the chat. Awesome. So obviously with your extensive experience in the cybersecurity space, I'm sure you've seen more and more types of threats emerge over the years. So what would you say are the most prominent cybersecurity threats facing law firms at the moment?
So the security threats, I would say there aren't many new ones per se, but just I would say the weight of the attack vectors have maybe shifted a little bit, or we have kind of refocused on what they are. Today, without a doubt, the biggest attack vector, and we say attack vector, which is basically the what's being attacked in the business.
Mhm.
The biggest attack vector is the human component in the business. There are terms like phishing, you might have heard, PHISH, phishing, social engineering, but these are basically a human to human based hack where somebody sends you an email, telling you to click here quickly or click here for, to change your password, click here to download the closing package your bank sent you, or it's a phone call. Your phone rings and somebody very official, is on the other line saying, "Hey, it's Eric from IT. We need your password so that we can we reboot the server." That sort of thing. So those are all kinds of social engineering or human to human attacks, and that is definitely today the biggest attack vector, in my opinion, for most businesses,
Mhm.
because from that, the other related attacks, viruses, email or business email compromises is the acronym they use now, business email compromise, BECs, I think. But basically, your email is a huge vector. So it's all day long. We're getting emails all day long. I get about 2 emails a minute,
Mhm.
and I would say 30% of them are spam, 10% of them are phishing attempts to get me to click on something to compromise my password to get into a system I manage, or my email or whatever. So it's definitely the human component. Secondarily, I would say it's email, because we're all sitting, it takes humans to run the business. And then we all still to this day, email, I would probably say, is the predominant business tool.
Mhm.
So those are the two biggest attack vectors. And then the third from there is the internet. So you open a web browser, or you have a computer that's connected to a network, that's inherently vulnerable.
Yeah, and I think all of us are probably familiar with getting those phishing emails. I know I get them every single day. And Gunter asked, what about spam filtering? Doesn't that help?
Yeah. So the keyword is help. Everything that I advise and install and configure and implement for our clients is only there to help. It's there to mitigate the risks. There is no panacea. There is no silver bullet. There is no solution that will 100% be effective to keep you safe. The only thing that we can do to be safe is to deploy reasonable technologies and tools and kind of a layered approach, to try to just mitigate and reduce the likelihood of a successful attack. For years we've had antivirus on our computers. So antivirus is there. It's a software agent that runs on your computer. It scans and brokers every single file that you touch on your computer, comparing it to a known database of viruses. And if it's finds a match, it will alert you and take some sort of action, or prevent you. That's your classic antivirus. But now we're doing things like we're calling security training or security awareness training kind of the human firewall piece. So it's the software on the computers, it's the firewalls on our gateways, it's the spam filters on our email, and now we're really pushing human training. So the training piece on the human side.
And on that note, you already kind of talked about what phishing is, but on that note of how to prevent those kinds of attacks, can you talk about how firms can recognize and prevent phishing attacks?
Yeah, so I always I, I always want to just recognize that we're a room full of business professionals, a lot of lawyers, a lot of doctors here, we're all professionals, and let's just all recognize that the term phishing is literally what like a 17-year-old boy invented as a term. It comes from this like hacker speak they used to call leet speak, where you would just convert like 3 E's to 3's, and like it's all like AOL Instant Messenger speak, if you remember that, if you guys remember that. So the term phishing, I always laugh when I see like I'm in some sort of like, I see, even your graphic is like some, important business person, and we're using the term phishing, which is like basically like a teenage boy's like, term that was conjured up. Anyways, say again.
I always wondered where that term came from.
Yeah, I mean, it comes from this thing called leet speak, and there's a whole what's the encyclopedia? I forgot the online encyclopedia thing. They have a whole page on it. But it's just funny. So phishing, how can we so what is it? So phishing is literally the human kind of like you're phishing a human by getting a human to take some action. So like I mentioned earlier, well, email is the biggest tool to phish somebody. So when you get a spam email that gets you to click on something, I mean, let's face it, marketing is phishing, right? So marketing, you're putting up billboards, you're sending out marketing emails, you're putting banners on web pages, you're putting advertisements on newspapers and periodicals. Marketing is phishing. You are literally trying to put out some sort of content or message and then get a response from it. So in the hacking realm, I mean, phishing is the same exact thing. So it can either be an inbound call, it could be a piece of spam email that you receive. It can be even like I remember like 10 or 15 years ago, the CNN ad network that was on the CNN's website got hacked. So they were literally phishing people on the ad banners on the CNN webpage. A few years ago during COVID, I think some hacker took control of Bill Gates and Barack Obama's Twitter account and was pointing people to send him Bitcoin, and that resulted in a few $1 million sent. And so that's all phishing. So phishing is just marketing. It really is just marketing. I mean, I hate to reduce it that way, but phishing is just marketing.
Mm-hmm. And then could you talk about some of the ways that firms can prevent those phishing attacks?
Yeah, right. So the only way, not the only way, it's a strong way to say it. The best way to prevent phishing is through education. I mean, there's just yes, you can have antivirus and spam filters, that sort of thing. Some new technologies will come in and use the term AI, which implies that it's using some sort of language model that's trying to interpret the words that are on the page of the email. But the best way to really prevent phishing attacks is through education.
Yeah, and that makes sense because you're kind of just saying it's inevitable, and the best way is that you're educated enough to recognize it's that.
Yeah, I mean, when you walk down the street, you have to be educated enough to not be, a victim of some exploitation, right? I mean, we have to interface with the humans and the public at large. The internet really is no different. So it really becomes a citizen approach to kind of educating yourself on how to be a citizen of the space, So. Right. As we grow up and we learn about how to interact with the public at large safely and read signals and be safe, using a computer is basically the same thing. So you have to get educated. I see it all the time, especially the older partners in a law firm or something, that at one point, I think it was a badge of honor, like, oh, I don't use those computer things. And then at one point they feel like it was too late for them to learn any of this stuff. And those folks are usually the easiest targets. And they're still integral in the firms. So, nobody is exempt from having to be educated in the ways,
Yeah, definitely. And we'll talk about education and training and more on that a little bit later on in the webinar. But shifting to some of the mistakes that law firms can make, what are the most common mistakes that you see law firms making regarding data security?
So I just had a phone call with a law firm in the Groton, Connecticut area yesterday, and this was a seasoned attorney. So he's been practicing for 30 years. He has 10 computers, a server, just as many staff, and he has no IT company. He has no IT vendor. He has no IT resource. That is definitely mistake number one. I mean, it's completely self-serving for me to say that because I'm in the business of meeting that need. But the reality is it's the same as not having an accountant handle your books. It's the same thing as not maintaining your dental health, going to get your dental checkups every 6 months. It's the same thing as not changing the oil in your car. I mean, it's just, if you get to the point where you have a business and that business is a law firm and you are an employer and you are providing legal services, you have just created an imperative, an ethical imperative for yourself and for those you're connected to make sure that you are not being negligent in kind of managing the things that the data. I don't want to use data too broadly, but the data and the information that you're handling. So not having a resource that can guide you and support you in using the tools and technologies that you're going to use. It's so easy to just go to Best Buy, grab a computer, plug it into the internet, and now you're connected, right? But the implication and the responsibility that you have to do that ethically and professionally and appropriately is there. So mistake number one, not having a resource that is helping you guide you to building and running your firm on the technology tools appropriately. So that's definitely mistake number one.
And then while I was doing some cybersecurity research to prepare for this webinar, I came across something called cybersecurity response plans, which I hadn't heard of before. So can you explain what those are?
So in simple terms, a cybersecurity incident response plan is exactly what it sounds like. It is a forethought that you have and a plan that you will work in the event of a cybersecurity incident. So, I mean, I just took your words and I just reorganized them on the page, right? It's a plan that you have before the incident occurs, that when the incident occurs, you will go to this plan and you will execute the plan. And there's certain security standards and like NIST. There's the CISA.gov. All of these bodies and professional organizations and stuff, they all say the same thing, but they publish some plans that you can download for free and you can follow. Even if you know what you're going to do in the event of a cybersecurity plan event is better than not having a plan. And this gentleman that I spoke to, this attorney who I spoke to yesterday, has no cybersecurity incident response plan. And in fact, during the call, he said that he recently, his firm suffered a ransomware attack, and all their computers were locked and this sort of thing. So a cybersecurity incident response plan is just a playbook that you're going to play by during a cybersecurity incident. Certain standards require that you have documented plans and things written down and that sort of thing. And then I don't want to I'm kind of like staying high level, but the plan also details things like who are the stakeholders and what their roles are in the process of a cybersecurity incident. And your eyes just started glazing over. That's why I just
I had a follow-up question actually, out of my own curiosity. I didn't even prep this one, so there you go. But with the businesses that you've worked with, I was curious, have you noticed that most of them don't have a cybersecurity incident response plan in place, and that's why you're working with them, or have some of them already had them in place?
So I'm pretty confident that our several hundred clients, most of their plan is to call Evernet. And fortunately for them, we have our ducks in a row and the software and the documentation that we need to act on a cybersecurity incident. and follow a written plan and follow a standards-based approach to a cybersecurity incident. This gentleman, like I said, I don't mean to keep using him as a bad example, but this other gentleman, like he has no plan. He's just going to kind of muck through it. It sounds like that's what he did. So I just jumped a track. Did that answer your question?
Yes, that did. And then I just
Okay.
noticed that we had another question come up. Did you want to answer some questions that come up now, or just wait?
I
till
will
we-
take a question, but let me just finish a thought that now I'm kind of I'm thinking of it again. Just calling Evernet or calling your IT guy during a thing is not the best way to plan for a cybersecurity incident. It's not the best way to have a cybersecurity plan. You definitely want to make sure that you're engaged in your IT resource in a recurring regular basis, and kind of following any guidance through that they set for you. I have a lot of clients who we tell them regularly what the best practice to do is, or what we need to do. And unfortunately, even our own clients don't follow 100% of kind of what we set forth. But I get that there's business initiatives and there's budgets and things like that. So it can be kind of a difficult thing. So
Yeah, definitely.
Go ahead. What do you have for a question?
So David asked, as an IP attorney in California and Texas, I have to be familiar with both states' unique laws pertaining to data security and breaches, in addition to federal laws. How do you address the fact that there are different state and federal standards for data breaches and subsequent disclosures?
Great question. Great question. And by the way, as I nod silently, are our cameras on screen, or is it just your presentation?
I think that they should be able to see the speaker and also the slides.
Okay. So here's a little secret that's should make everybody feel better when it comes to the regulatory landscape. Cybersecurity best practices, or I should say data security best practices, or let's just use the term security best practices. This dirty little secret is all of the regulations and all of the guidelines more or less say the same exact thing. So if you, it just sometimes, I think, depending on when a regulation is being updated or edited, like I noticed a lot of the state bar associations and even county bar associations, they maintain their own practice rules and ethics rules, but they always kind of look upstream not always. I presume they look upstream to like the American Bar Association to kind of set a standard. Well, the American Bar Association looks over to the federal government, and it's this CISO, Cybersecurity Information Security Office. I think I could totally have that wrong, but there's all of these agencies that are kind of looking up and then looking laterally and kind of like, what are you guys saying and what are you saying? And then you have the industry vendors, like Microsoft publishes their best practices, and all the cybersecurity vendors, they publish their best, but they're all kind of saying the same thing. And all of that, and I can boil it down to you really simply, like all you have to do is implement reasonable security measures, antivirus, full backups, continually educate yourselves and the agents of your business, and then just maintain patch systems. It's like basically that simple. And yes, there's some documentation in the security incident response plans. There's standards-based documentation that you have to have on the shelf somewhere. And you got to make sure that you're testing these sorts of things. But I guess the answer to that question, I'm going to say, is it's probably not as big of a burden as they probably think it is. If they just follow the best practices that are being kind of dispensed to them through either the trade association, the bar association, or their consultant or resource, they should be doing everything, because a lot of the regulation and language uses the term like reasonable, what are doing everything that you reasonably can. I mean, I get solicited every single day by some sort of solution to a problem I didn't know I had, from some tech vendor, some new technology vendor that's coming out with a new product that solves some problem. And we'll get to those when they're vetted for viability. But the methodology used to adhere to security standards is kind of pretty well set. So you have to be doing a lot of nothing in order to be worried, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And then we had another question. You kind of touched on this already with how a lot of the businesses you work with, their incident response plan is just calling Evernet. So Gunter asked, do we really need an incident response plan? If I have cyber insurance, I will just call them and they will bring in the cyber guys, right? Playing devil's advocate here.
Oh, that's a loaded question. That's a loaded question. Can you kind of repeat that? I want to make sure that
Yes. He said, do we have, he also said, sorry for the question.
No, it's fine. It's fine, Gunther.
He said, do we really need an instant response plan? If I have cyber insurance, I will just call them and they will bring in the cyber guys, right? Playing devil's advocate here.
I'm pretty sure your insurance company isn't bringing anybody in except for maybe an adjuster to see what part of their policy you are in violation of. So so they don't have to write a check. And in fact, I think that's really all an insurance company is going to do and is good for, is just writing checks. Writing checks to people who are suing you or going to sue you for your negligence, or writing a check to you so you can try to continue to operate your business while you are in total disarray or dysfunction. So that's all an insurance company is good for. So do you really need a cyber security incident response plan? Well, the answer to that is like really every business owner and every leader and every individual kind of has to do their own risk assessment, risk risk tolerance assessment. So like how much risk do you want to how much risk can you tolerate? And if you don't have a plan, and your plan is when all of your computers are locked, your phones are ringing, and maybe you have clients in the conference room or whatever, but all your computers are locked and you can't get to any of your matters, and you can't log any bill time, and you can't put any invoices out. And that's going to be the case until if you have an IT resource, until they come in and see what tools that you've empowered them with to restore your business. You have to make that decision how much risk you have tolerance for. If calling your insurance company is your incident response plan, you're basically gonna go out of business. I wish I had the stat in front of me, but there's a pretty high percentage of businesses that don't survive like ransomware attacks, for example. I think it's like 25% of businesses just go out of business, or have to be rebuilt in some significant way, like even down to the point of like reestablishing bank accounts and registered trade names and things like that. Even though you may know who your clients are and you can just onboard them into a new computer and a new system and a new tool set or whatever. So it's pretty high. I don't know if I answered that question. Did I answer that question? Calling your insurance company is not a response plan. It's not a good one.
I think you answered it, and then Gunter said you did. All right, so we can move on to the next discussion question.
I even read that some business liability insurances are requiring you have a new type of antivirus called EDR, which is God, these acronyms, I'm getting too old. EDR is detection response, endpoint detection and response. It's weird. The acronym doesn't really align with what it does. As I told you earlier, classic antivirus uses what's called definitions-based scanning. So it like literally has a database of like files that it knows are viruses. And then every time you touch a file, it compares against the database it has. That obviously doesn't work because it becomes this cat and mouse game. The hacker just changes the file of the virus a little bit and then just starts disseminating it. And it only becomes caught by antiviruses if after the antivirus company like has a customer that has been infected by it, and then they get a sample of that virus and then they add it to the database. That's how antiviruses always work for like the last 35 years, 40 years. EDR is a new technology that is supposed to supplant the classic antivirus definitions model, where it's literally the software is on your computer and it's trying to interpret the behavior of you, the end user, and the applications on your computer. So a virus really is just a program. So EDR is the next gen of antivirus that, like, when you double click or try to install a program, this antivirus, the EDR is watching the application to see what its behavior is doing. Is it doing a mass selection of files? Is it locking a bunch of files all of a sudden? There's all of these behaviors that the EDR is monitoring. And I just, my understanding this year is that a lot of business liability insurance requires EDR to be installed on a insured computers. And that's the type of thing that if Gunter says, "Oh, I'm just going to call my insurance company and they'll just start writing me checks," the insurance companies, I've heard, and this is anecdotal, but I've heard that the insurance company is going to ask you what kind of antivirus you have on your computers. And if you give some product that is not EDR class, then it's very possible that the insurance company is going to leave you holding the bag because you didn't meet the requirements set in the policy.
Got it. And then for this next question, you touched a little bit on IT support. So can you maybe just talk a little bit more about why having access to consistent IT support is so important?
Yeah, again, this is so self-serving for me to say that this is the biggest problem, but it doesn't make it any less real or any less imperative. It's like if you were to try to perform your own medical diagnosis. You know, if you have a kind of a mental health issue and you go to Google and you start typing in your symptoms, or you try to diagnose yourself on WebMD, or you try to perform your own surgery, or you try to do your own dental work, or you know what I mean, or you try to, I mean, you can, in the legal realm, you can represent yourself, of course, it's your right. But everybody will say, like, you probably don't want to do that. You don't want to, you want to hire a trained professional who in the realm of the area that you're dealing with. Technology and IT specifically is no different from that. And it's vitally important because of the implication of these systems. I mean, I don't know what stat I want to give, but like, you can have a solo attorney with 10 computers and 10 people operating for 10 years, and you've probably touched, maybe 50 clients a year. And if you're doing real estate closings, or if you're doing estates, or if you're doing wills or that sort of thing, like, one attorney over a 10-year period could just have access to, I would say, tens of millions of dollars. Right. And everybody and all of the that private information. But if that attorney just does his own cybersecurity and he's not trained to do it, he or she are being completely negligent. It's completely unacceptable. So if you want to practice a law and you don't want to hire an IT company, that's fine. Just stick to the old docket files, those accordion files. Keep your yellow legal pad next to you, and use a regular rotary phone, and just operate it using those tools. But as soon as you start bringing on tools that allow your data and your client's data and your client's money to be exposed to the entirety of the world electronically, you have a professional obligation to do that in a responsible way. So that's why it's so important, because at minimum, your bar association has professional rules of and expectations, and you have an ethical expectation. Practically, it's just dumb if you don't.
And then we just had a question that I'm sure you would love to answer. Monica asked, any idea of IT companies for attorneys?
Well, of course, my company is an IT company for attorneys. We also support other industries. We support the healthcare industry too. But legal is our biggest client base. If you're, I decentralized our company in 2017 before anybody ever heard of COVID. We took, I think, in 15 years at that time or so, we hosted 2 client meetings in our office. Many of our clients were moving to web-based software, like my case, And we strongly are making that case for clients to move their software to the web. And I'm not using the word cloud on purpose, because cloud just means internet. And you can take Windows-based software and you can put it in virtual machines and host it on the cloud, but you're still dealing with kind of like Windows-related challenges. So we recommend web-based software, like MyCase, wherever possible. With the advent of web-based, my entire company, for example, operates in a web browser. So we are completely geographically agnostic. So in 2017, we decentralized our company, and now we're everywhere, anytime. A lot of our clients are doing the same thing. So why am I saying this? Well, in the past, it was really important to have a local IT resource, or a local accountant, or somebody who can come into your office that you knew, they knew you knew them, and you had a real tight kind of personal and physical rapport, so to speak, handshakes and all, and that sort of thing. That was definitely necessary 10 years ago and before. Now, like I said, during COVID, our sales process, because in 2017, when we decentralized, I was trying to build our sales process to be virtual, and through Zoom and Teams virtual meetings and things, there was some resistance to it. But since COVID, it just forced everybody to learn how to conduct business using these tools, Zoom and that sort of thing. So long story short, like you can now hire the best talent or the best resource, like an IT consultant or IT support company, and they don't have to be geographically located. Again, totally self-serving for me to say that, but it doesn't make it untrue. I do not recommend you have the PC repair guy in the strip mall around the corner from your office manage your law firm's IT. Maybe he or she has the talent to do it. Maybe. Okay, get references if that's the case. I would recommend, if you're looking for a talented IT resource that understands your business model, the legal business model, your industry, find a company, and there are companies that specialize in industry verticals, it's called. That's where you want to operate. You want to vet those kinds of resources, and just see how strong they are in supporting the law firm, understanding your trust account imperative, understanding your professional ethical responsibilities, understanding your community, understanding your software. MyCase, understanding how important it is to have practice management software. The gentleman I spoke to yesterday didn't know what practice management software was. I had a current existing client who has a support contract with us, but isn't using practice management software. And the associate attorney, because I've been promoting this webinar to all of our existing clients, one of the associate attorneys of an existing client of ours, who, yes, uses us for IT support, he emailed me, goes, "Oh, geez, I saw your webinar coming up. I didn't know that you guys dealt with practice management software." And my response to him was, yeah, we deal with all the tools surrounding your law firm's business processes and operations. So
awesome. And we have a few more questions here. I'm going to take one more because it kind of relates to something that you were talking about. The others I'm going to save for our Q&A session at the end, so we have time to get through our discussion. But you were talking about cloud-based software, and Mark had asked, so if I'm entirely cloud-based, MyCase, Microsoft 365, for example, where is my risk not backing up from MyCase, having my passwords changed? Those are his two questions.
That's a really great question. And this is when, before we started recording, I was telling you that it's really hard to have these webinars and try to be really complete in trying to educate on the cybersecurity issue. It was really simple when you had a classic, like Amicus Attorney based window. It was like a Microsoft Windows and server based database, application database kind of paradigm. Everything was kind of in-house in your office. We would manage the server, we would install the software on it, we would manage the network and the wiring that connected to your computers, and we would plug it all in and it would work fine. That was real easy to kind of, we back it up, we secure it, that sort of thing. Now with web-based, and I want to make it clear that web-based is different necessarily from cloud. Cloud just means the internet. Web means web in the web browser. So when you use MyCase, for example, you are opening your web browser and you are navigating to your MyCase software, cloud, you can have a hosted, like you can have a Windows workstation hosted in a what's called a virtual machine and still have kind of Windows-based software. So there's just a little distinction there. Where is the risk with web-based software? It's a good question. Not all vendors like MyCase or other web-based software providers have a backup that their customers can use to back up their data. There's a couple reasons for that. One is, even if you backed up your database from MyCase's server, and I'm just using it as an example, and I haven't looked into this recently, but I don't know what you guys provide off the top of my head for backup of a customer's data set.
It's
You
Amazon,
know,
Amazon servers.
but do you let your customers back up their data?
I'm not 100% sure. I know that MyCase itself will back it up regularly every night,
Course,
Amazon
of
servers,
course.
but as a manual feature that customers can do, I'm not 100% sure, but I would recommend either speaking with one of our MyCase reps and booking a demo to go more in depth into our security measures. Or if you go to the features security section of our website,
Right.
that'll go more in depth as well.
The answer also is it's not common for web-based vendors to have a customer-facing backup. So when you buy MyCase or you buy something like MyCase, we are putting our trust in you guys to make sure that you are doing the backups and security appropriately. So to answer the attendees' question about web-based software and where the risk is, Microsoft Office 365 does have third-party backup abilities. We can inject a vendor in between you and Microsoft Office 365 and back that data set up. And again, I'm using as an example, not knowing that what the real data information is right now with MyCase. MyCase, I would not be surprised if MyCase didn't have that same kind of model. So many web-based softwares don't, and that's okay. That's okay, because what you have to do, and with every web-based vendor that you use, you are extending trust to them, and they have a fiscal imperative to not violate that trust. I mean, it's all. I'm a little bit of a libertarian when it comes to some business process regulation and stuff. But when I always laugh when there's a regulation coming down the pike as a result of some failing of a business, because the business already has a fiscal imperative to get it right. MyCase has a financial imperative to make sure that your trust is never violated, to make sure that MyCase never loses data, that you never lose data. If they get it wrong, there will be a mass exodus and mass lawsuits for the losses. So and I think the tools and technologies are readily available, like AWS. You said MyCase uses AWS. AWS is like the leading cloud vendor for hosted applications. Nothing is perfect, but it's very robust, and it's a leader in the space. So hopefully that answers the question. The answer to the question is like, web-based software may or may let you back it up. If you can't, you're extending trust to the vendor. Your local stuff, you need to secure in the ways that you need to secure it.
Awesome. And yeah, and then looks like Joseph had mentioned that he believes MyCase has a data dump feature.
Okay, many do.
So yeah, it looks like we do have that. But yeah, again, if you go on our website, chat with someone from our support team, they are much more knowledgeable about all of those data features. But yeah, it does sound like we do. So that's great.
That actually speaks to, I think, your integrity as a company, which you guys, that's why I love partnering with you guys, because I think you guys have really great integrity.
Yeah.
To see that that's the case, I didn't want to throw you guys under the bus, because it's not really a bus issue, but it speaks to the trust relationship that you form with your customers to make
100%.
that backup available. The funny thing is, if I back up my MyCase data set, I can't do anything with it. I can't do anything with it, because MyCase is a unique application that works with its data structure is unique to the application. But still backing up that data, if you guys had some catastrophe and I was just hyper paranoid and all of a sudden you guys had a problem and I called you and I said, I have my data, can you upload it and restore me? That would be the scenario when that would happen. But
Yeah.
it's highly unlikely that you guys would be negligent or
Yeah.
failing in that,
Yeah, definitely. More like a worst case scenario
I mean, like,
situation.
yeah.
Awesome. So we talked a little bit about kind of the difference in now with remote working and not having to have, physical people in office and things like that as far as IT goes. So also related to that topic, is there any difference in cybersecurity measures firms should be taking when working remotely versus in the office?
Short answer is no. There are other implications though. If you issue a company computer to your employee, of course you own that device, so you have the right to secure it. If they take that device home and they let their 7-year-old play solitaire on it, it's kind of hard to control that. When you have your computers in your physical office, you can control the 7-year-old not going on that computer. So there are software mechanisms that we can put on computers to try to, kind of control that. But the implication is that you have to have a real strong culture of trust. You have to have employee technology use policies in place that you're continually training your employees on and continually holding them accountable. If you don't issue a work computer or work device, and you are like in our case, we're entirely web driven company, for example, we no longer issue computers to our people. They use their own computers. There are varying levels of checks and balances that you can use to secure those, and it turns into a little bit of a hot potato because of, if you're not issuing a computer to your employees or your resources, and you want them to use their home computer, like, how much say do you have in putting like agents on their personal computer to secure it and control them? So it depends on what your business is doing and what your risk tolerance is and how much control you want. I would say though that if you're an entirely web driven company, I think it's completely appropriate today to not issue computers, and you can get along with employees using their own computers, again because of the way web software works. When you go into a web browser and you go to mycase.com and you log in, you're going to see that padlock on the top left. So that connection in and of itself is secure. I don't want to get in the weeds with security, but I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. And then also, I noticed that Kevin had a good note in the chat. He said also he recommends using multi-factor authentication and making sure your users know to lock their screens when walking away.
Oh yeah, don't get me started on MFA. So second to employee education, and I don't even want to say employee, like it's people education, because executives, managers, owners are not exempt from the education component. Like everybody needs to be educated uniformly, and using a learning management software that measures everybody's participation in the training. Secondarily to that, multi-factor authentication is the most important security measure today that has to be implemented across every platform that supports it. Unfortunately, there is a standard that kind of guides how to implement multi-factor authentication, but unfortunately, it is incumbent on the software vendor to implement it. So what you see often, if you can, Facebook has multi-factor authentication. Most people don't know it's there. Most people don't know how to configure it. It's in one of the old legacy looking Facebook settings pages. And I don't even think it says multi-factor authentication as its security title. It just calls it like, I forgot. I haven't looked at it in a while, but so it's just implemented differently across every single vendor. So it takes a certain amount of initiation from the end user to go, I need MFA enabled wherever possible. So it's a muscle memory for me, for example, when I register a new account with anything, whether it's a retailer or a software vendor or a social website or anything. As soon as I give my email and I generate a password for it, and they say, welcome to your new account with us, I immediately go to the profile settings or security settings, and I investigate their implementation of multi-factor authentication, and then I configure it.
I just discovered the MFA on Facebook the other day, actually.
Every
Every
time I see somebody post on Facebook, my account was hacked, don't answer any links or questions that I just sent you. I did a video on my YouTube channel about it, trying desperately, I think in vain, to try to help people secure their Facebook accounts. But the crux of it is multi-factor authentication.
Yeah.
You have to listen, passwords can be brute forced. It's just like literally a computer can be set on to just try every single string of characters against your password forever. And computers are increasingly capable of doing that. So the only way to secure your account is with a second physical factor that is in your possession, that can't be in the hacker's possession, that when you log in and they, through their own algorithm and detection, say, hey, give us that second factor, give us that 6-digit code to make sure it's you and not a hacker. That's really the only, and unfortunately, if you've been following the news, Uber just got hacked 2 weeks ago, and they had multi-factor authentication on, but there's this new attack called a MFA fatigue attack, where the hacker had the username and password of the IT guy at Uber and just kept doing a MFA code request. And the MFA app on his phone just kept popping up saying, do you approve this login? Do you approve this login? Do you approve this login? And the guy kept hitting deny. And then eventually, whether he fat fingered the screen or he just gave up and said, fine, that's how Uber got hacked. Like a significant hack. So if you get a phone call and somebody says like, hey, we just sent you a 6-digit code, can you read me the code? If you're going to give them that code, you are nullifying the benefit of MFA. So, but the only way to not do that is with continued cybersecurity awareness training.
Yeah.
So the training is necessary to continually keep everybody uniformly across this kind of baseline knowledge of kind of what's happening today. And then of course you need the tools like MFA, firewalls, antivirus, EDR.
Yeah. I definitely learned the hard way to not wait until after you get hacked to enable MFA, because I definitely experienced that on my Instagram at one point, but now I'm all about it.
Don't wait until after the hack. The third thing, if I can offer unsolicited advice, is password generation. Use a password manager. If you know any of your passwords by heart, you are mismanaging your password situation. I don't know any passwords anymore for any platform or any server or any account or any system, anything that I use personally or professionally. If you are memorizing a password and modifying it a little bit with an exclamation point or a number change or whatever like that, you are in imminent danger. Don't do that. Use a password manager. Apple has one built in. Every web browser has one built in. We recommend LastPass. None of them are perfect, but the point is that password manager will help generate a long string of password for you and inject it into your account while you're kind of creating the account or whatever. And then it'll help store that for you in your password manager for later recall.
Yeah, that's an awesome recommendation. And then I know you've kind of touched throughout the webinar on some of the different best practices. Is there anything you'd like to add? We have a few questions to get through, so I wanted to bring this up in case there's anything that you wanted to talk about. Otherwise, we can run through the last few questions.
Best practices for the law firms, like maintain a healthy, engaged relationship with a trusted IT professional, whether it's one person, whether it's a company. You don't necessarily have to buy everything they're selling or recommending or implement everything they're buying or recommending, but at least be engaged with that resource. If you view IT as a waste of money or a distraction, you are gravely mistaken, and you are acting gravely negligent for your future. You have to view IT, you should want to view IT with an excited demeanor, that the technologies and the tools that we bring you are bringing you capital. This is why I tell people, we literally just sell and implement and teach you how to use shovels, right? If you were if you were in the business of digging holes, you could dig the hole by your hands. Okay, but think of how many holes a day you can dig if you were selling holes. If you did it by hand, you can't dig that many holes. You got to hire a lot of people, whatever. But as soon as you buy a shovel from somebody, like now you're digging holes faster. You're less injury, more robust holes. You're providing better service. So we just sell shovels and we maintain those shovels for you. If you're not going to use the shovel, then you don't need us. But if you're going to use a shovel, get excited about the next new shovel, the bigger shovel, how the shovel can provide a better service for you. I mean, that's, it's a horrible metaphor, but you get
No,
what
I
I'm
love
saying,
it.
right?
Yeah.
So like literally practice management software is like shovel number one for every law firm. Okay. It is the epicenter of your firm. It is the analog of your business on a computer. And so you have a vendor like my case, but then you have a vendor like Evernet that's helping facilitate the use of that tool. So you can do more, provide a better service. I mean, you guys provide a client portal?
Yes.
Right. So I can't tell you how many of my clients don't care about providing their clients a client portal. But if you've ever bought legal services or professional services or any services, I mean, in 2022, I think I'm guessing you're younger than me. I'm 39. But if anybody I buy anything from doesn't have a client portal where I can't like see my last payment, or I can't see my last invoice, or I can't see what the nature of the work product with that relationship is with that vendor, like I just don't feel positively about that vendor. I feel like what is this, like a not the sleight of hand, but like a bait and switch. I mean, what's the secret? Like, why can't I see what your work product is for me that I'm paying you good money for? So the tools, they let you provide a better service. They make you more productive. So you have happier clients, you have higher profitability, and you're doing it easier. It's helping you to do it easier. So have a healthy relationship with a technology resource who's going to help you understand that these are tools to help you. That's the best practice. And then do everything you can to move the ball forward or downfield or uphill, however you want to say it, to implement all of those recommendations as much as your business processes can absorb it. Because I know some technologies like multi-factor authentication, hugely disruptive, like teaching a 68 or 72-year-old attorney how multi-factor authentication works is hugely painful. And if you're out there, I get it. Like I get it. But having that healthy relationship with your resource is going to just kind of help you get through it.
Awesome. And looks like we're coming up on the hour. So I'm going to skip over a couple of the other questions we had because you kind of already touched on them. But let's wrap up on this last one here. So to kind of bring it full circle, are there any specific IT tools or resources? I know you mentioned a few for data security you'd recommend to law firms that would be helpful for our audience to be aware of and take away.
I mean, there's technical tools, which I don't think I want to share with anybody here because it's just probably beyond the scope of what, if this is a room full of attorneys here, then I'm not going to share any technical tools because it would be like trying to, if I was a dentist trying to share like certain picks and widgets that you're using, you know what I mean? It's just not appropriate. Newsletters are helpful tools. Sign up for your see if your bar association has a cybersecurity newsletter that they're sending out and subscribe to that. Your IT company, see if they have a newsletter or if they have any regular mailings that they're sending out. Don't be quick to mute them. I mean, that's the one resource you don't want to silence too soon. That's really, you want to keep the flow of information coming in and you want to remain relatively engaged. So it's kind of general to say that that's an IT tool or resource, but in my opinion, like it's, putting CC cleaner on your computer is not a tool. Like that's not doing anything for you anymore. So stop. I can give you some sort of, penetration testing tool that you can go to, and it's technical and stuff, but you're probably not qualified to act on it anyway. So just,
Yeah.
from the tool standpoint, just stay informed. That's the best tool and resource. So, the government, like CISA.org, CISA.org, I think, is the federal government's cybersecurity division now, and they have a newsletter and things that they send out. So that's where I would say that.
Awesome. And it looks like we are up on the hour, and I want to be mindful of everyone's time. So unfortunately, we're not going to take any more questions, but I know we answered a lot of them throughout the webinar. So I'm glad that we were able to get to those. But thank you so much, Eric, for being here and sharing your time and insight with us. And for all who attended, thank you for being here as well. We hope that you found this webinar helpful. And before we wrap up completely, I'm going to launch a quick exit poll that you'll see pop up on your screen. So if you could do us a favor and vote in that, we'd really appreciate it. So I'll leave that up for a few seconds.
Thank you, everybody. Also, I just want to say thank you.
Yes, thanks so much, Eric.
I got the poll too. Should I answer?
If you want.
Did you want to plug my website, or you're doing that after the poll?
Yes. Did you want me to send the same link as before, or is there a different one?
I just wanted to, everybody's saying thank you. I see the little bubbles pop up. So thank you again, everybody. I know, again, MySpace has been a really great partner and business friend of mine and our companies, and I'm really enjoying having a relationship with MyCase. MyCase has their own implementation team and support team that they will support their own product. Our role in the law firm's relationship with the vendors is just to liaise wherever the firm needs us to, whether it's calling support, MyCase support on your behalf, or kind of rolling up the sleeves and helping you with accounting integration, and kind of getting closer to the firm that maybe MyCase isn't willing to get that close. Again, as I said earlier, happy to give anybody an hour of my time to talk about anything at all. Just go to my website, evernetco.com, and then there is the /LP/MyCase, and happy to hear from anybody.
Awesome. And yeah, I dropped that link in the chat, like Eric mentioned. So if you guys would like to book a consultation with him, you can go to that link or his website. But thank you all again for being here. And other than that, we hope that you have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next time. And thanks again, Eric.
Thanks, Allie.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for watching. If you've made it this far, I think you deserve a gift. If you choose to become an Evernet client, I'm going to give you $500. Schedule a discovery call to see if we are a good fit for your practice and to claim the gift. If you are interested in help integrating MyCase or evaluating your practice and case management needs, or if you want to discuss your cybersecurity concerns, email me at eric@evernetco.com right away, or go to evernetco.com and schedule a discovery call. That's it. If you haven't subscribed, consider doing so now, and give the video a like or a share if you have friends that you care about. Good luck, everyone.